Continuing, Martin Heidegger, What is Called Thinking. Excerpts. Part 1, Lecture 1. We come to know what it means to think when we ourselves try to think. We are not yet capable of thinking. Man must be capable of thinking if he really wants to. Perhaps he wants too much when he wants to think, and so can do too little. We are capable of doing only what we are inclined to do. We truly incline only toward something that in turn inclines toward us. What keeps us in our essential nature holds us only so long, however, as we, for our part, keep holding on to what holds us by not letting it out of our memory. Only then are we capable of thinking. We learn to think by giving our mind to what there is to think about. What is essential in a friend, for example, is what we call friendly. In the same sense, we now call thought-provoking what in itself is what remains to be thought about always, because it is at the beginning before all else. Most thought-provoking is that we are still not thinking. Man has, for centuries, now acted too much and thought too little. Preoccupation with philosophy, more than anything else, may give us the stubborn illusion that we are thinking just because we are incessantly philosophizing. Most thought-provoking in our thought-provoking time is that we are still not thinking. Some things make an appeal to us to give them thought, to turn toward them in thought, to think them. What is thought-provoking, what gives us to think, is then not anything that we determine, not anything that only we are instituting, only we are proposing. According to our assertion, what of itself gives us most to think about, what is most thought-provoking is this, that we are still not thinking, have not yet come under the sway of what intrinsically desires to be thought about. That we are still not thinking is by no means only because man does not yet turn sufficiently toward that which, by origin and innately, wants to be thought about, since in its essence it remains what must be thought about. Rather, that we are still not thinking stems from the fact that the thing itself that must be thought about turns away from man, has turned away long ago. What really must be thought keeps itself turned away from man since the beginning. Man is not capable of really thinking as long as that which must be thought about withdraws. What has been presented here has nothing to do with scientific knowledge, and the entire discussion that is to follow has nothing to do with scientific knowledge, especially not if the discussion is to be a thinking. Science itself does not think and cannot think. Consequently, is fruitful only after the gulf has become visible that lies between thinking and the sciences. There is nothing but mischief in all the commerce between thinking and the sciences. We can learn thinking only if we radically unlearn what thinking has been traditionally. We said man still does not think, and this because what must be thought about turns away from him, by no means only because man does not sufficiently reach out and turn to what is to be thought. The event of withdrawal could be what is most present in all our present, and so infinitely exceed the actuality of everything actual. What withdraws from us draws us along by its very withdrawal. Once we are drawn into the withdrawal, we are drawing toward what draws, attracts us by its withdrawal. As we are drawing toward what withdraws, we ourselves are pointers, pointing toward it. Man here is not first of all man, and then also occasionally someone who points. Pointing into the withdrawal, man first is man. His essential nature lies in being such a pointer. Man is a sign. It points not so much at what draws away as into the withdrawal, without interpretation. Holderlin writes, "We are a sign that is not read." The early Greek thinkers, Parmenides, fragment 8, are precisely the ones to use mythos and logos in the same sense. Neither mythos nor logos can keep to its original nature. In Plato's work, nothing religious is ever destroyed by logic. It is destroyed only by the god's withdrawal. Memory is the gathering and convergence of thought upon what everywhere demands to be thought about first of all. Surely, as long as we take the view that logic gives us any information about what thinking is, we shall never be able to think how much all poesy rests upon thinking back, recollection. Poetry wells up only from devoted thought, thinking back, recollecting. Under the heading Mnemosyne, Holderlin says, "Long is the time," that's the quote, "long is the time." Heidegger continues, "The time in which we are a sign that is not read." Does this not give enough food for thought? By way of this series of lectures, we are attempting to learn thinking. The way is long. We dare take only a few steps. If all goes well, they will take us to the foothills of thought, but they will take us to places which we must explore to reach the point where only the leap will help further. The leap alone takes us into the neighborhood where thinking resides. We therefore shall take a few practice leaps right at the start, though we won't notice it at once, nor need to. In contrast to a steady progress, where we move unawares from one thing to the next, and everything remains alike, the leap takes us abruptly to where everything is different, so different that it strikes us as strange. Abrupt means the sudden sheer descent or rise that marks the chasm's edge. Though we may not founder in such a leap, what the leap takes us to will confound us. The matter of thinking is always confounding, all the more in proportion as we keep clear of prejudice. To keep clear of prejudice, we must be ready and willing to listen. We misunderstand what we hear of thinking, particularly if the immediate subject of the discussion is scientific. But if a distinction is made between thinking and the sciences, and the two are contrasted, that is immediately considered a disparagement of science. There is the fear even that thinking might open hostilities against the sciences. A fog still surrounds the essence of modern science. It arises from the region of what is most thought-provoking that we are still not thinking. None of us, including me who speaks to you, me first of all. A cabinet maker's apprentice, someone who is learning to build cabinets and the like, will serve as an example. His learning is not mere practice to gain facility in the use of tools, nor does he merely gather knowledge about the customary forms of the things he is to build. If he is to become a true cabinet maker, he makes himself answer and respond above all to the different kinds of wood and to the shapes slumbering within wood, to wood as it enters into man's dwelling with all the hidden riches of its nature. In fact, this relatedness to wood is what maintains the whole craft. Without that relatedness, the craft will never be anything but empty busywork. Any occupation with it will be determined exclusively by business concerns. Every handicraft, all human dealings, are constantly in that danger. The writing of poetry is no more exempt from it than is thinking. Teaching is more difficult than learning because what teaching calls for is this: to let learn. The real teacher, in fact, lets nothing else be learned than learning. The teacher is ahead of his apprentices in this alone, that he has still far more to learn than they. He has to learn to let them learn. The teacher must be capable of being more teachable than the apprentices. The teacher is far less assured of his ground than those who learn are of theirs. Only when man speaks does he think, not the other way around, as metaphysics still believes. All the work of the hand is rooted in thinking. Therefore, thinking itself is man's simplest, and for that reason, hardest handiwork, if it would be accomplished at its proper time. Being able to think is still no guarantee that we are capable of thinking. To be capable, we must, before all else, incline toward that which of itself gives food for thought, what we call most thought-provoking. Most thought-provoking for our thought-provoking time is that we are still not thinking. The reason is that this most thought-provoking thing turns away from us. In fact, has long since turned away from man. All through his life and right into his death, Socrates did nothing else than place himself into this draft, this current, and maintain himself in it. This is why he is the purest thinker of the West. This is why he wrote nothing. The sciences come out of philosophy because they have to part with her. They can never again, by their own power as sciences, make the leap back into the source from whence they have sprung. Hölderlin says, "We are a sign that is not read, we feel no pain, we almost have lost our tongue in foreign lands."